People may ask you that where can you find the lymphocytes, you know? If somebody asks you, most of the people, they would just, answer that most of the lymphocytes should be there in the blood. But that is not the case. Most of the lymphocytes, the B cells and the T cells, or the small cells coming out of the lymphoid progenitor cells, are found in specialized lymphoid tissues. Okay? We call the lymphoid tissues as primary and secondary lymphoid tissues. So most of the lymphocytes would be there in the secondary lymphoid tissues. Okay? What are the primary lymphoid tissues? The primary lymphoid tissues is either the bone marrow. Okay? The primary lymphoid tissues are where the lymphocytes are going to originate. So they originate in the bone marrow. And the primary lymphoid tissue is, another primary lymphoid tissue is the thymus, as you see here, it's a gland. So the thymus in bone marrow, these are the primary lymphoid tissues. And other lymphoid tissues, as you see these yellow dots in your body, these are all representing different lymphoid tissues in the body, secondary lymphoid tissues in the body. So the secondary lymphoid tissue, for instance, adenoids or the tonsil glands in your mouth, or you can say different kind of lymph nodes, the lymphatic system that we talk about, appendix. These are all, our intestines, these are sites of the secondary lymphoid tissues. We call it lymphoid tissue because the lymphocytes reside in these tissues. After they are made in the bone marrow, what is going to happen to the B cells? The B cells are going to originate here and become mature B cells in the bone marrow. But on the other hand, if you look at the T cells, they originate in the bone marrow, but then these cells are transferred into the thymus for maturation. Okay, so lots of activities are going to happen there in the thymus that we are going to discuss. This is just an introduction of what is happening here and what we are going to discuss in our lectures later. So the circulating lymphocytes, the lymphocytes in the blood, they meet lymph-borne pathogens in draining lymph nodes. We would also talk about the lymphatics in the lymph nodes in the next slide. Okay, that the lymphocytes, as I told you, when they mature and they are drained into the blood, or they migrate into the blood, they are smaller in size. Then from the blood, these lymphocytes are to be transported into lymph, okay, or the lymphatic system. And this is the system, the lymphatics system is the system where these lymphocytes are going to learn, how to become effector cells, or how to, do their proper job for which these lymphocytes are synthesized in the body, So, you know about the blood circulatory system, okay? You would have gone into detail of that. And you also know about the lymphatic system, which run parallel to the blood circulatory system in your body, in the connective tissue of your body. These lymphatics runs, parallel to the blood vessels. And from the blood, certain, a liquid portion of the blood just oozes out of the blood vessels and enter into the lymphatics, okay? And that fluid which is coming out of, the blood into these, a different system, a different, vascular system or vessels, the lymphatics, these are drained back into the blood at some point that I will tell you now about. Most of the lymph which comes out of the blood vessels would run back into the blood at this particular entry, which is called the left subclavian vein. Okay, there is a left subclavian vein and there is a right subclavian vein. As you see here in this blue image, this one is the left subclavian vein and there is a right subclavian vein. So the subclavian vein is going to drain the deoxygenated blood from the upper part of your body into, the jugular vein, and from there, the fate of the blood, that what is going to happen, where it's going to be transported. Okay, so in this, at the junction of the jugular vein and the left subclavian vein, right here, this lymph which comes out of the blood is drained back into the blood, So this is a type of circulation of the lymph coming out of the blood and joining the blood again, at this particular point. And the lymphocytes are the only cells which are found in the lymph. Okay, we call it lymph. That also is because of the fact that the lymphocytes are present there, in this particular liquid. Okay, so if you see here, the arterial blood is coming out of the heart, being supplied to all parts of your body. Then there is a venous blood, the blood vessels. After the blood reaches all the cells, then they turn back to the heart. The deoxygenated blood is pumped up into this direction. The lymph is coming out of this arterial blood because the lymphatics are running parallel to this particular thing. And then this lymph is going back and joining there. The lymphatics, the thoracic duct, or the left thoracic duct of the lymphatic system is going to join this particular left subclavian vein right here to pour all the lymph that has been collected from the body into the lymphatic system. Okay. Now, this circulation is different from the circulation of the blood because the circulation of the blood is powered by your heart. Your heart is beating with the help of the smooth muscles that are again powered by these electrical impulses generated in your body. Then, that kind of pumping of the heart is making sure that the blood reaches each and every part of your body. Okay. Now, the lymph is not drained in that particular way because there is no pump for, pumping the lymph throughout your body. So how is the lymph being transported from, for instance, your legs, the lymphatics that are present here at your legs, up there to the subclavian vein, which is right here, The subclavian vein is behind the clavicle. This is your clavicle bone here. We also call it the collarbone, So this subclavian vein actually is behind this bone. The lymph is coming out right from your toes to this particular position. How this transportation is taking place in your body if there is no pumping or no power? Where does the power come from? There must be some kind of power. There are different valves. It is supplied. These lymphatics are supplied with valves. So the valves are arranged in a way to ensure that the lymph just goes in one direction, and it does not go down. And the other way is where is the power coming from? The power is coming from, for instance, the smooth muscles that are continuously contracting and relaxing inside your body, are the movements that you are making. For instance, if you are moving or if you are in continuous motion, then that actually is helping the lymph to be transported in your body from the lower extremities into the subclavian vein, and this circulation of the lymph is very necessary because the blood cells which have been pumped out of the arterial blood, into the lymphatic system, the B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, these have to go into the lymphatic systems and get some kind of training there. What kind of training is that? That is about the recognition of the pathogens. They are going to be trained there in order to recognize the pathogens and turn into effector cells, or the cells that are functionally active. So the movement of your body is important for the movement of the lymph in these lymphatic vessels. And the lymph, if you look at the composition of the lymph, you would find different types of fats. For instance, we call it chyle. Are different kind of lipids which are there. Most of it is water which has come out of the water, and there are these blood cells that we are talking about. So the blood cells, once they come out of the blood vessels into the lymphatics, if they come across some kind of pathogen in the lymphatic system, they are going to stay there for some time, okay? And if they do not find any pathogen in the lymphatic system or inside the lymph nodes, these blood cells are going back into the bloodstream right there at the left subclavian vein, okay? So the cells are continuously being recirculated here in your body. This is the picture that you can see about the lymphocyte recirculation, that how the lymphocytes, they would come out, and then these lymphocytes drain out of the blood, they go into the lymphatic system, and inside the lymph nodes, this is a kind of depiction of the lymph node. In afferent lymphatics, they would just enter into the lymph nodes, and in the efferent lymphatics are going out of the lymph nodes. They are taking the lymph back to the circulation or the blood circulation. So the efferent lymphatics are going to take these blood cells back into the blood circulation, and that recirculation of the lymphocyte is going to be repeated again. So the small lymphocytes are unique among blood cells in traveling through the body in the lymph as well as the blood, okay? That is why they are named lymphocytes, as I told you. And lymphocytes leave the blood through the walls of fine capillaries. The blood vessels finally are going to turn into very minute or small capillaries where the blood is going to flow. The lymphocytes leave the blood through the walls of the fine capillaries and secondary lymphoid organs, okay? We are talking about adenites, we are talking about tonsils, we are talking about intestine, or we are talking about the secondary lymphoid tissues, not the primary one. I'm not talking about the thymus or the bone marrow. So the rest of the tissues that you saw in that image before, all those are the secondary lymphoid tissues. And inside the secondary lymphoid tissues, this is going to happen. These cells are going to come out of capillaries and join the lymphatic system. A lymph node is illustrated here, as you see here. And after spending some time in the lymph node, lymphocytes leave in the efferent lymph and return to the blood at the left subclavian vein, as I told you. If a lymphocyte in a lymph node encounters a pathogen to which its cell surface receptor binds, it stops recirculating. Only those lymphocytes which find their perfect partner in the lymph node would stay here. all other lymphocytes are going to be drained back into the blood. Okay, and why they are going to stay here? Because they are going to respond now, to be trained to respond or to become effector cells. In these lymph nodes, the B cells are going to be converted into memory or plasma cells, and the T cells are going to be converted into T helper cells, cytotoxic T cells, regulatory T cells, or memory T cells. So all these different phenotypes of the T cells are going to be decided right here in this lymph node. And the fate of the B cell is also going to be decided right here in this particular lymph node. Okay? This is true for all secondary lymphoid tissues. In all secondary lymphoid tissues, if it is the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, like the adenoids, for instance, or tonsils, etc., or parts of the intestines that we are talking about, all these are secondary lymphoid tissue. So for all the secondary lymphoid tissue, this phenomena is going to be the same, because they all have the lymphatic system, and the lymph nodes exist there, are afferent lymphatics and the efferent lymphatics. Afferent are taking the lymph to the lymph node. Efferent are going to drain this particular lymph into the blood circulation again. So that's why we call them so. These structures are present in all the secondary lymphoid tissues. Okay, so this kind of recirculation or decision to stay here in the lymph node would happen in the case of all secondary lymphoid tissues except the spleen. Okay, the spleen is an exception here because the spleen is a very important lymphoid organ, and this is very vital for survival of individuals. I would tell you in the next slide probably, because this particular organ has no connection to the lymphatics. The lymphocytes enter and leave the spleen in the blood. Okay, so all the secondary lymphoid organs are equipped with a proper lymphatic system except the spleen, which does not have any lymphatic vessels. That's why only the blood vessels are going to take the lymphocytes into the spleen and take the lymphocytes out of the spleen. Okay, the lymphocytes are going in and they are coming out in arteries or in the veins. Okay, the artery is taking fresh lymphocytes into the spleen, and the veins are going to take the lymphocytes out of the spleen. Okay, and the lymphocytes which again would encounter some kind of pathogen inside the spleen would stay there, but other lymphocytes would be coming out of the spleen. And these lymphocytes again in other secondary lymphoid organs can be drained into the lymphatic system. So this is the anatomy of the lymph node. As you see here, there is a lymphoid follicle here where you can mostly find the B cells or the B lymphocytes. There is an afferent lymphatic vessel right here and right here. So there may be more than one lymphatic vessels which are going to supply lymph into particular lymph nodes. Okay, but the efferent lymphatics or the efferent duct which is going to take the lymph out of the lymph node is usually one. Okay, so in secondary lymphoid organs you can find a number of afferent vessels or a number of lymphatics, lymphatic vessels that are going to join together to make a node-like structure, and then a single efferent lymphatic vessel is going to take the rest of the lymph coming out of this node into the circulation. Okay, so there are distinct areas here there is a B cell area, and the B cell area is around the margin. If you see, there is a T cell area. The T cell area is just next to the B cell area. You see the blue part, which includes the T cells, and there is a supply of blood with the help of artery. The blood is coming out with the help of this vein, and there is a germinal center here as well. The germinal center in the lymph node is responsible for activities like, for instance, if the B lymphocytes or T lymphocytes comes in contact, with particular pathogens, they are going to stay in these germinal centers, and then these B and T lymphocytes are going to turn into effector B and T cells in these germinal centers, and they also are going to be expanded. Their number is going to be expanded here in the germinal centers as well. So this is, the anatomy of particular lymph nodes. These are vessels, and at different points in your body, there are, small nodular structures where the lymph is going to stay for some time. And that nodular structure actually is the station for the lymphocytes to stay there for some time. And if, there is some pathogen which has which has entered the lymph, how the pathogen is going to enter the lymph. Probably I had shown you a slide where, if there is some breach of, the innate immune system. For instance, if there is some injury or some pathogen enters or crosses this barrier of the mucosal membrane or the skin, for instance, it enters into the tissues under the skin or under mucosa, they are going to be readily detected by different immune cells which are present in the tissues. For instance, there are tissue macrophages which are present there. So these tissue macrophages and dendritic cells which are also there, they are going to detect these pathogens and take these pathogens into the lymph. Okay, they are going to take from the connective tissues, they are going to take the pathogens into the afferent lymphatic vessels, and these afferent lymphatic vessels are going to drain that pathogen into this particular structure, which is known as the lymph node. So this would be about the weight of these different types of lymph nodes. In case of humans, it varies, but it can be as big as 1 gram, in weight. And the function of it is to provide opportunity to the B cells and the T cells to come in contact with the pathogen. So once the pathogen has been transported into the lymph through the afferent lymphatics with the help of who? Dendritic cells or the macrophages, these pathogens are going to come in contact with either the B cells or T cells here, because this is the station for the B cells and T cells. They are residing here. They are going to stay here for some time. So, as I told you, for each and every pathogen, there is a specific B cell or a specific T cell, okay? And these cells are continuously drained out of the blood into the lymphatic system. They stay here. So, there is no chance that a pathogen would go undetected. The pathogen is going to come in contact with a specific B cell and T cells right here in the lymph node. And when it comes in contact with these cells, the B cells or T cells which have found their perfect partner would stay here in this structure, and the rest of the cells are going to go out of this structure or the node through this particular duct, which is called the efferent lymphatic vessel. Okay, because those cells are not needed. Now the body needs only the type of cells which have detected the pathogen. These cells would be produced in greater number. We call it the clonal expansion of these cells, because the threat is there, the threat has been detected. The rest of the cells, millions of different types of cells, B cells and T cells, are not required. The body decides it very immediately, within no time when it comes in contact with the pathogen. But what are the type of cells that should be expanded now? Because only these cells can protect the body, not other type of cells. Because, as I told you in my previous lecture, adaptive immunity is not cross-protective, Adaptive immunity developed against one pathogen cannot save you against another pathogen.